Will the second stimulus kill our economy for good? Was the massive coronavirus breakout among Senate Republicans actually a coincidence? And is the left's speech and attitude biblical? Let's find out today on The Worldview. I want to move on to this deal about these conservative senators and stuff coming down with all of this coronavirus deal. Now, it's interesting. I just want to point out that this is very convenient. Okay, think about this. There's been 3+ conservative senators diagnosed with this already, and I think it might be growing a little bit. Okay, that's the last thing I heard was like 3+. And then Kayleigh McEnany comes down with it. Several White House staffers. There's a little breakout happening in the White House, and then the very president of the United States himself came down with coronavirus. Okay, got the Chinese flu or the Kung flu or whatever you want to call it. Okay. The Chinese virus is what I prefer to call it, because I agree with our president. You know, people are blaming Trump's virus. It's not Trump's virus, as the left always wants to push to you. It's China's fault. China released it on the world on purpose. We beat them in a trade deal. We finally fought back and punched back. You think communists are going to lay down and take it? No. They're communists. They don't care how many people suffer. They don't care how many people die. That's their agenda. That's how they handle situations. You disagree, you die. So what do? They release a virus. It's not Trump's virus, it's China's virus. And we need to remember that. And I like calling it the Chinese virus because that's what it is. You know what? Chinese people are not bad people. There's a wonderful Chinese people. I know Chinese people personally, wonderful people, okay? When I say the Chinese virus and I'm talking about China, I'm not talking about the populace of China. I'm talking about the government. The Chi-Com government, the Chinese communist regime. The Politburo and all of them. That is one of the most evil groups in this world. They're horrible, evil people. Xi Jinping has killed more millions of people and got away with it than anybody else in this world currently right now. He's a mass murdering psychopath. Okay? And I think we need to remember that, okay? It's China's fault, not Trump's. So having said that, all these people are coming down with this coronavirus deal. And by the way, I want us to remember this. They're all coming down with coronavirus, and the left is trying to push us. See, that's a byproduct. You know, Nancy Pelosi, it's a byproduct of his reckless behavior. Okay, you know, and she's all, yeah, and her little, Nancy, I've never wanted to slap somebody so bad. But anyway, Nancy Pelosi is, first of all, she's evil. She is straight up evil. And we'll talk about that actually in our devilish series. It's not going to be just her. I mean, but her spirit, the spirit that is about her, is evil. And I can prove it to you, okay? And we're going to talk about that, I believe, in the second main episode of the devilish series, okay? And we're going to show that to you. But they're always talking about how it's just a byproduct of their recklessness, a byproduct of them denying facts, denying science. You know, it's so funny that the people who claim that they're all a bunch of science believers are constantly promoting ideas that are against the science and silencing hundreds, thousands of scientists that are constantly saying, what are you guys talking about? Boop, and they mute them. They cancel them. We live in a cancel culture where they are not allowed to speak the truth if it goes against the agenda. So remember, they're pushing this leftist ideology. They're pushing this propaganda on you that this is a byproduct of conservatives being reckless. But what's so interesting about this, okay, is that you have to remember that they're all being tested all the time. Everywhere they go, they get tested. Every time they enter into Congress, they get tested. Every time they stand before a White House briefing, before a bunch of reporters, they get tested. Every time there is a rally held, everybody there is tested. The tests are coming in all the time. Okay, people, especially, and you have to remember, the president is the most protected person on, I'll say on the planet, but I don't know about the whole planet, but he's the most protected person in the United States, for sure. The most protected person. Okay, if you're talking about being physically protected, okay, now he's attacked all the time, you know, via media and all that, but he is the most protected person in the United States. Anybody that wants to meet with him has to go through a bunch of different vetting processes and has got to be tested. The president immediately afterwards will be tested, beforehand will be tested, and then later on in the day will be tested, and then the next day will be tested, and the next day will be tested, and the next day will be tested. Okay? They're always being tested, so don't let them convince you that it's a result of their reckless behavior and their denial of science. No. because we have caught the Democrats, the liberal left. We have caught them disobeying their own rules and their own mandates. We watch them go into salons and other places and bars and all that without masks and to get their nails done and everything like that. We watch them take off the mask. We watch them go into group settings and they huddle together and talk about whatever it is that they're talking about, their plans of destruction, for the country, I guess. And they're sitting there having these meetings all together in enclosed spaces for longer than 15 minutes. We've seen them disobey their own mandates. We've seen them break the social distancing rule. We've seen them do this stuff. So the very rules and mandates that they're constantly pushing on us are the same rules that they're breaking all the time. So once again, don't let them convince you that it's a result of reckless behavior and denial of science. Okay? And by the way, several of these people that got on the conservative side here that got this were people wearing masks at the time that they were so-called exposed. Okay? So this leads us to a conclusion, okay? So first of all, we must ask ourselves, name a leftist. Even though they break all of these rules that they're always trying to push on you and me, they break all of them. So even our governor here in Louisiana has broken them, okay? And I've never have liked him, okay? I'm not saying he's an evil, horrible person, but I don't trust him, okay? But he broke his own rules also. I mean, all of these liberals, all these governors and senators and all this kind of stuff, Congress people, have been busted out about this all the time, okay? So, it's that classic thing, good for me, or no, good for thee, but not for me. That's the little meme that's been going around, and it's true. It's true. That's how they feel, okay? You're too stupid to control your own life, so we got to control it for you. That's how they believe. That's the leftist agenda. That's a communist socialist agenda, okay? The people are not smart enough to govern themselves. We must govern them for them. We must make their decisions for them, okay? So you have to ask yourself the question, how many leftists have been diagnosed with this? How many leftists have come down with this? Even though they're breaking the same rules, even though they're disobeying all their own orders. And see, they're all getting tested just as much as the right is getting tested. So where's the difference here? The difference is they're leftists and they're constitutionalists or Republicans or what have you. The leftists, nobody's come down with it that I know of. And if they have, then the news just isn't reporting it, because that would also make sense if it's not a setup. I'll say this. If it's not a setup, if it's not that these people on the right were intentionally exposed by whoever's doing the test, or maybe somebody was able to sneak in, or maybe somebody, there has to be, you say, well, that sounds like conspiracy. Folks, it has been proven time and time again throughout 2020. The left is totally open. Their book has been opened before all of mankind. They are cheaters, liars, thieves. They will do anything they possibly can to win. Chuck Schumer, just the other day, I think it was Chuck Schumer. It was one of them top people. Pretty sure it was Chuck Schumer. But he said, everything is on the table. I didn't bust my rear end to become the the House Majority leader or whatever just to get nothing done. He said everything's on the table, meaning they're totally open. There's nothing that they won't do. We have to ask ourselves, if they are coming down with it and this isn't a plant, if this isn't something that was planned, then the media is hiding it to basically prop them up as, look, the Republicans are reckless, and look what happened to them, and we're responsible, and we never lie. We always do the good. We're just do-gooders, and look at us, and we've obeyed, and we've been compliant, and we are completely free of any kind of sickness. Now, I'll say this, if none of them actually have it, none of them have it, and all of the right does, or not all the right, but a lot of these people, by the way, once again, it's awfully convenient how the highest levels, and this is another thing that makes me think that they don't have it and the right, that the left doesn't have it and that the right is being infected with it intentionally, because it seems that the highest levels, all the people that have been really outspoken against the left and socialism and communism, they've really been outspoken about it. Those happen to be the people that are coming down with it and almost dying. Candace Owens almost died. She has asthma. She got coronavirus, and her lungs were being burdened down with the coronavirus. And they had to admit her to the hospital. She was dying in front of the doctors, and she needed an asthma treatment. And then all of a sudden, there was a miraculous protocol that came up and said, "Oh well, we can't treat her because of coronavirus. It's a coronavirus. It's against protocol. We can't treat her with a breathing treatment." So you can't treat somebody who has a lung disease with a breathing treatment. Now, where in the world, in a hospital of all things, in a germ supposed to be germ-free environment where you can seal somebody up in a room and do whatever you need to do for them and with them or whatever to help them get better, and some miraculous law comes about and says, well, we can't, that's against regulations. We can't treat you because you have coronavirus, and we can't treat your lungs, even though that's where the problem is. But they don't have any problem putting people on a ventilator when it's going to bring in, $50,000. They don't mind doing that, do they? They just hate conservatism. They hate anybody that loves America. Okay? So it seems awfully convenient to me that it's all the most outspoken people coming down with this virus on the right and nobody on the left. It just seems a little too convenient to me. Almost as convenient as this virus, which a lot of data has shown, which ones that these people have been canceled, but the real science and the real data shows that this virus has signs of being manipulated, meaning it was more than likely manipulated, and it's been traced back to the lab in Wuhan, China. It's been traced back to the lab, and then those people were silenced, and then the people who said, "Look, we can tell that this has been under a microscope. We can tell that this has been genetically altered to fit a certain demographic," and those people have been silent, or have been silenced, have been canceled. So it's almost as convenient as a supposed natural virus that only kills seniors. Not to say that people with extreme health conditions and all that kind of stuff. What's interesting about that is that communism says that once you reach a certain age, you're no longer of use to society. That's why Obamacare said if you're over the age of 65, you get a deadly disease, the hospitals are not obligated to treat you. It's called euthanasia. That's why I love President Trump when he pushes this thing of the right to try, the right to life, the right to try. That's awesome. It doesn't matter. You could be 95 years old, come down with cancer. You have a right to try to make it 5 more years. You have the right to try. But under Obamacare, which he's a communist, Marxist, Muslim who hates America, and of course, if you're a communist, then you're pro-euthanasia, unless it's you. You can be 95 and get the best health care in the world, but everyone else is beneath you, and they are not allowed to live past that because they're no longer of use to society. On paper, they don't produce as much, they don't make as much money for the state and all this kind of stuff, so they're no longer of use to society. If you're 450 pounds, you don't matter because you can't be of usefulness. If you have a deadly form of cancer, you're not producing anything. If any kind of health risk you have that's preventing you from being a form of income for the state and a form of labor for the state. I did a video on why the left hates hardworking people. You ought to check that out. But if you're not producing, then you don't matter. You don't matter. And it's interesting how this virus is tailor-made. It just seems a little convenient that this virus is only killing those people. Isn't that interesting? That's pretty convenient. It's almost as convenient as Andrew Cuomo, who is also a communist, socialist, Marxist, and he's a Jew hater on top of that. Interesting thing. We'll talk about that in our Devilish series also, the link between those things. There's a huge link, between evolution, communism, and hating the Jews. Big link there. It's interesting how it seems a little convenient that this is tailor-made to kill old people and people with diseases, and Andrew Cuomo puts all these coronavirus patients in a nursing home and kills all the old people. Intentionally. Well, we can't say intentionally. It was just a coincidence, right? Well, that just seems a little too convenient also. It's also as convenient as these doctors, so-called doctors, these men in white coats walking into President Trump's office and saying, President Trump, if you don't shut down the country and destroy the economy, that is your biggest re-election, part of your re-election campaign, then 2.5 million people are going to die in America because of this virus. No evidence. They had no evidence. All they had was models that have been wrong every single time. And come to find out, the science, the reality, promotes to us and shows us the data. We have 7+ months of data on this virus, active data on this virus. It has a 1% death rate. That means it had less than 1% in reality, but it has a 99% survival rate. And our government destroyed 380 million people's lives over 1%. Now, you can say that's cold-hearted. One death is too many. I agree. But I don't think that that 1% that ended up dying from this, I don't think they would want their family, their children, their grandchildren, the rest of the country to die along with them. That would be kind of sick, wouldn't it? Abuse has gone up. Alcoholism has gone up. Suicide has gone through the roof. Was it worth it? The economy is completely crashed. Was it worth it? Now, it's on the state of recovery. It is. But it's hardcore being propped up. I mean, it's going to be a long road back. Was it worth it? It seems awfully convenient. And I think we need to be asking ourselves the question, the one thing that could have destroyed Trump's reelection, the one big thing is the economy. And you see, and to me it's obvious because the left is always throwing the coronavirus / economy back in the face of Trump. And Trump's like, that's China's fault. China lied to the world. Blame Xi Jinping. But they won't do that because they're in the pockets of China. Bottom line. Anyway, just seems a little convenient to me.